July 22nd, 2024, for all you people that keep up with the date and the time. It is 9:05 Eastern, 8:05 Central. That's 6:05 in the Pacific Standard Time out there. Dave Tompkins going to join us from the Low Country over in South Carolina. Brendan Martin, our executive producer, pulled off one hell of a show Friday, Dave, from the broom closet at the Delta Sky Club out at the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. He's going to write his own version of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, his journey home with the CrowdStrike shutdown Friday, getting back from Dallas. He started Thursday afternoon about 4:30. Hey, Doug Dean will be checking in with us. And about half past the hour, I'm going to have one of the young writers, what I call our young bucks out there. Will Hearn writes for Bulldog Illustrated over in Athens, talking some Georgia football. Get the perspective of the youngins. It'll be fun. Look, smash subscribe button, bottom right-hand corner. Allow notifications on your Android and iPhone. If you missed us last week, we were on. We just switched the times up. But get pen and paper handy because we're coming at you right now.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, we got Doug Dean coming in here with us right now. I'm going to bring on Will Hearn about half past the hour from Bulldog Illustrated. But Doug and Dave, Friday's show was a lot of fun. I was out there in Dallas with Brendan last week for SEC Media Days, and over 1,200 credentialed media were there from all over the country, and that was the largest ever. And I could fill a shoebox with all the names of the people I know that didn't attend for any number of reasons. You know, our good friend Tony Barnhart over in Dunwoody was out with a cold, and but he joined us on the show Wednesday. But man, it was it was unbelievable the amount of interest out there. And folks, Dave, check your Wi-Fi, Dave, from Brendan. But
I will,
the amount of interest out there.
I'll be right back.
And good gosh, the Texas TV stations, when Sarkeesian came up the elevator, Doug, with Quinn Ewers and the Texas entourage, I mean, it was as if we are the SEC. And it's going to be fun watching all the battles between the SEC traditional fan bases with Texas and Oklahoma. But the takeaway from last week was every team. Look, it's not an "I got you" conference, Doug. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't people trying to put people on the spot and make them look like idiots. Those days are over. You do that on your own. You can do it on social media or whatever. When you're talking to the coaches, you're just trying to get intel, and you talk to 3 players from each school. But we worked probably 16 hours a day, and it just doesn't feel like work. It's so much fun. But, man, we were on last week. We were doing a little 5-minute preview at 8 a.m. Central. Then we would come back on at 5 p.m. Central in the afternoon and then go on Buddy Martin's show at night. But, Doug, you watched it from afar. I got to talk to a lot of players and coaches. And when you do that, you start putting the human factor on them. There's some cool stories in the Southeastern Conference, Doug Dean.
Yeah, there are. Brendan, sorry for your airport travails. That had to be fun.
Can you guys hear me okay? Hold on a second.
Yeah, it's just kind of low. I don't know what's going on.
Well, those are your ears from playing Led Zeppelin as a child.
Oh, yeah. My hearing is really – I'm having to ask people to repeat themselves constantly now. But, so many rabbit holes and angles you could talk about from media days last week. Is my audio okay, Brendan?
Yeah, you're good to go. Everything's good. You're great.
Okay, so We can talk about Kirby Smart and, the kind of whoever the deans of SEC coaching are now. Since Coach Saban retired, that list is shorter, but Kirby is kind of uninteresting. And by that, I mean, nothing offensive to good Bulldog fans. Just, we know he can win. We know he's loaded with a roster. What I'd be more interested in, and I have my own opinions just from watching from a distance, but you were there. If you look at the second tier that's trying to break through and make noise and have a chance to make the 12-team playoff, obviously Ole Miss, obviously some believe Mizzou has a shot for that, not to win the SEC, but get there. Tennessee, and there may be a couple. LSU is really no second-tier program. I mean, they've won big for many years, but which coaches? I really mean head coach. The players they bring are going to sound good, and you're going to like them. But I'm less interested in that, unless there's some bombshell take that you have from a player. But which coaches struck you as really having a confident air about them, and it's subtle to watch. But you can, I mean, you're always going to get that from Nick Saban and Kirby Smart and maybe a few others. But what I mean is you can just watch the body language of a coach, and what you get is he doesn't want to say it and, set himself up for a big fall, but he knows he's got something. He's got a new system. He's got players. He's got a difference maker on defensive end or at quarterback. Which of those, with that criteria, Rob, you were there, which two or three kind of stand out as striking you as, hey, bring it on. We're ready to take on all comers.
No question. Lane Kiffin, Hugh Freeze, Eli Drinkwitz. I mean,
you put Freeze in the group. Wow.
Yeah, he's completely different now. We got to talk to him in the lobby Wednesday night. Brendan and I, there was a Chamber of Commerce convention going on. Basically,
let's
Cougar Fest 2024, and it was all in the lobby.
Rob
we were down
talked
there.
to everybody in the lobby.
Yeah, we talked to everybody down there.
Rob
Freeze
made
talked
friends
to
with
everybody.
everyone. Yeah,
He was. I looked over there about 10 o'clock Wednesday night, and I see this guy in an Auburn orange quarter zip, and I'm like, that's Hugh Freeze. Just Joe Sixpack, man. But he
Rob,
is.
Rob, I got to interject. I don't want you to get in trouble with your good bad audience. I assume that you're saying Kalen DeBoer is confident. If you get that roster, even if you came in as a less confident type of coach, personality-wise, he has every reason to be confident. You just excluded them because they're sort of right there with Georgia in terms of not being second tier.
What I was going to do. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say Kalen DeBoer is just, he exudes confidence. But those three coaches are guys that, Lane Kiffin, people say, well, Kiffin didn't really say anything this year. Well, he lost his dad. I mean, and that's tough. And Paul Feinbaum did an incredible interview with him, and Buddy really was like moved by it, and everybody went. And I told Paul Feinbaum, I said, man, you just get it. But I will say that Freeze, because he's got the band back together, he's comfortable with that. Drinkwitz, because he's smart and he knows it, and he's got Brady Cook. And I asked Luther Burden III, I said, last year you had 9 touchdowns, 1,212 yards receiving. 700 of your yards were after contact. How does it bring a lot of pride to you being the most physical wide receiver in the SEC, probably in college football? He liked that. And then so you look at Drinkwitz, Kiffin. Kiffin knows now what we've all thought he's a great coach, and he's got a team. He feels good. He's got a defensive line. His offensive line depth chart is a lot better. And I'll say this about Kalen DeBoer. We now have 2 football coaches in the SEC from the great state of South Dakota. Kalen DeBoer from Millbank, South Dakota, and Josh Heupel from Aberdeen, South Dakota. And I did get to pull Josh Heupel aside for a few minutes, just talking to him. And I got him a Hewlett and Dunn Tennessee shirt, which is already probably has it on right now. But, the coaches, the one, and Brendan, I think you would agree with this as our body language, and Audrey's our body language expert. The one that looked almost like the defeated man, I'm just being honest, was Shane Beamer. I didn't like that.
Really?
I think he's just, but, it took his dad, Dave, 7 years to get it cranked up at Virginia Tech. But, I mean, everybody's excited per se at this point, but you have to be like, that's why we have smart people like this panel here to cut through it. But Kalen DeBoer, it's hard not to be confident when you're 104-12. That's hard to beat. And a roster like Doug referenced, how are you going to not love that?
And the gift that keeps on giving in terms of their recruiting. I mean, every time you go to CBSSports.com, they've signed another 5-star player. Yeah. And kudos to Kalen for really making what seems to be a great first part of the transition. Now, come September, we shall see. And what I love is you go from 1 to 16 in the SEC. Obviously, Vanderbilt's number 16; they're not in consideration. But even in that lower part of the bracket, there's a couple teams. Auburn, I think, comes to mind. Is currently picked number 10. That they can have a good season and make a run, to get the fourth bid for the for the playoff. And I've never been more excited about an SEC season. I'm so sorry I missed media days, and I'm just so impressed with the miraculous performance all of you put on a show on Friday from the broom closet. But this
crazy.
is let's have the Olympics over the next couple of weeks.
I waited to get in to Delta Sky Miles because there was not enough attendance, and then I just sort of scurried in like I was a part of the family, and then went to a closet area, and then the whole show was brought to you by a woman named Helen whose iPhone was open. Helen, you should really not do that. But thank you for the free.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Helen. Oh, Dave, your Bluetooth makes you sound like you're in a tunnel. That's what I was trying to tell you. The thing in your ear.
How's it sound now?
Terrible. Hey, can we stop? Can we just say it's happy birthday to somebody today? Is it not Rob Brown, downtown Rob Brown's 39th birthday today?
Hell, thank you.
Is that true, Rob?
Rob, happy birthday, bro.
Rob,
thank you.
You didn't even tell me it was your birthday, and I just feel like we are closer than that, and I feel like I just wanted you to know your fans and all of us love you, Rob. And
well, thank
39
you. 39
is a good year for you, my friends.
It is. And this morning at my front door, Dave and Doug and everybody, I went to the door. There was a knock on the door.
Shine like a star, 'cause that's who you are, day and night.
Happy birthday, Rob Brown. I mean, you're a big boy. I love you, Rob Brown.
Sometimes wishes do come
There you go, buddy.
true.
That's what I do for you as your producer.
Let me tell you, I went to the door. There was a knock on the door this morning at 6 a.m. And I went there, and it was a giant birthday cake and music and everything. And out of that birthday cake, after the dancing, was Mildred in a bikini to wish me happy birthday. I think, Mildred, happy birthday. But look, Doug Dean, when you watched all these coaches up there, and I think Luther Burden III is the best player in the SEC. He's a 5'11" kid out of, I think, East St. Louis. You remember, Doug, they were a superpower in high school football, like Moss Point and Dillard High School in Fort Lauderdale. I think that's the reason why people forget about Missouri is just because they're out there. But with Oklahoma and Texas coming in, man, I think Missouri feels more a part of the SEC today than they ever have. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and true confessions. I probably, and they certainly did some things to cause you to downgrade them. Now, Pinkerton? I always get his last name wrong.
Gary Pinkel, yeah.
Gary Pinkel, thank you. Not the security company. He marches into the SEC and makes it to Atlanta to play Auburn early on. But overall, I just thought Missouri was in a league and didn't, kind of like we're some fans are discounting what the ceiling is this year for Texas and Oklahoma. I think that's potentially a mistake, especially in the case of the Longhorns. But I was wrong about Mizzou. They can play big boy football on a given day. And I probably doubted whether they had the recruiting base that could give them a chance to line up against the top 5 or 6 SEC teams every year. Now, Drink has got to show up this year and demonstrate proof of concept that it wasn't a kind of a fluky year that got him there. A tremendous year last year. and who was it they destroyed in their bowl game? Big time team.
Ohio State.
Ohio State. Yep.
So I think Drinkwitz, he can either stay as long as he wants at Mizzou, and they'll pay him pretty well, or he's about to be on the short list for some really big name programs should they have a vacancy.
Well, Gators. Interestingly, Dave, Missouri's putting $250 million into renovating the end zone where the rock quarry is. They're starting to realize after last year, hey, man, we can play in this league. I think they've got a commitment is what I think they've got, Dave. That's the part of it that's incredible. They're starting to realize. Dennis Dodd even talked about that. He's a Missouri grad.
First off, do I sound better? I've adjusted my settings.
Mucho, señor.
Mucho mejor. Okay.
Yes.
Entonces, yes, we had Dennis on a couple weeks ago. He talked about all the money, the $250 million for the stadium renovation.
Yeah.
The NIL money. I mean, they're serious about this. They think they can sort of emerge from just being sort of a almost basketball program to a legitimate football program. They've got a ton of confidence. They got relative to the rest of the SEC, they've got an easy schedule, an easy road to, a third or fourth bid of the SEC in the playoffs. A lot of people have them pick fourth. I think most of us think Ole Miss should be fourth, but I mean, it's all out there for them this year. It's theirs for the taking. And I can't wait to watch them, go on the road to play Alabama. And what's that going to be like? And what's Alabama's season going to be at that point? Having the gauntlet that they've already run. So, yeah, I think I'm more intrigued about Missouri than any team in the SEC this year.
A fun forced choice like the ACT. Only two answers here. You got to pick one. Which team plays with more pressure throughout this season, Mizzou or Ole Miss? I got to go with Ole Miss for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Ole Miss. Yeah.
But there's a little pressure on Drink because the theory is he's bringing back one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They've got a favorable schedule. And if he goes out there and I'm not saying pressure like you've got to make the playoff, but if Drink were to have, say, 4 losses, then doubt creeps in and, here we are, we're Mizzou again. But
Don't be forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah, but Kiffin, no question about it. Kiffin has not been able to break through. He probably would have if he had ever been named coach at Alabama or somewhere of that ilk where you're just loaded with talent.
Wait, I just sent you, Brendan, if you can pull this picture up of those 2 Gators that I saw out in the hall at Media Days. I sent you the email.
This is when Rob
tell you something.
pretends I have a magic wand. I'm going to go pull this out.
We were in the
Excuse me for one moment, Rob. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't know if you already had it or not.
I did not.
It's a picture.
I love you, though.
But when we were in the breakout rooms, after you're in the main media room, you go to the side. Graham Mertz is an impressive guy. Damn, man. He's big. And he has talked about the confidence. I asked him, how do you feel today versus where you were a year ago? I always like to ask that question. And when he talked about it and he said, when I first got to Florida, I'm there and I get this text and it says, hey, man, anytime you're free, I'd love to sit down and talk to you and see what I can do to help. DW. And he didn't know who that was. And he goes, someone said, dude, that's Danny Werfel. There he is. It's just so I walk out in the hall afterwards because Graham Mertz said, hey, man, I hear Danny Werfel's coming to Media Days. That's just a first-class guy. And he goes, if I see him, I'm going to give him a big bear hug. Danny Werfel was out there and just in the hall just to show support for that quarterback. Danny's a cool guy. Desire Street Ministries in New Orleans.
Very good guy.
You go down to Destin and Fort Walton, Danny Werfel way over across the bay. I mean, there's a lot of stories that we're not hearing about. But Doug, you just said it. If Missouri kind of falters, oh no, we're just Mizzou. Drinkwitz is a smart guy, and Kiffin is confident. I mean, he lost his father, and man, he's going through a lot. He also knows that his father, taught him well. They're going to be Ole Miss is going to be a tough out this year, but I think Missouri is too. And then we're going to get into, Florida. I keep going back, and I'm just curious, Dave. Florida's roster is 9th in the country on the blue chip index, 63% 4 and 5 stars. All we're hearing on the narrative about Florida is how tough their damn schedule is. Logo fever.
Well,
They're
that's
not
what we
talking
heard.
about the roster that they have.
Rob, but that's what we heard when Billy was up for his press conference.
Yeah.
Is that and that's what's great about going to SEC media days. You get a perspective that you don't get here. And I'm not trying to toot our own horns, but they don't drill down. Literally, it's a rip and read. You know, what's hot? Let me give me my 3 topics for each team, and then those questions gets bounced around. And if you watch that press conference, I think literally the first 3 or 4 questions all were about the schedule.
Yeah.
And I kicked Rob. I said, there are plenty more storylines going on, you know, that he'll be happy to answer. And I left this up from Lainey Thompson. Hey, Brendan, did you realize Graham Mertz was in the room when you asked about DJ? Absolutely, I knew he was in the room. That's the room is big, by the way, and the way they come in,
ginormous.
It's a ginormous room, enough to have 4 large cameras in there for ESPN. But and the set, by the way, that they ran for not game day, but whatever. They had their set in there. So there's a giant
network,
a giant ballroom in there. But the point is, I knew he was in there, and I think what we heard from Graham and what we heard from Billy was that, DJ has come in and he's doing it the right way. He's humble. He's come in. He's talked to Mertz. Mertz will tell you, and he said during his interview, he's a great quarterback, but he's a fantastic human being. And that's what makes Graham Mertz, sort of special, is that he's suffered. Right? You can't have growth unless you have struggle. He had struggle, and he came and he found his career back at Florida, and now he's paying that forward. And Lagway is going to benefit from that. And I don't think he knew when he came out, because look, Billy starts the press conference by saying, without Graham Mertz, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically says what a big deal it is for the Gators to have Mertz back. And I think it is a big deal. And I think that will be, the difference maker for a guy like Lagway. And I don't think Graham would have had a problem with it. And asking that question in the presser, it's part of the culture of the team. And it's a known thing that they do support one another.
Yeah.
There's no quarterback controversy. Let's get that.
And that was
Graham
cool.
Mertz is the starter, and that is the way it's going to be. And he's going to start all year. So.
Yeah. And, Dave, I think you and Doug both hit on this. Some teams just, if they start to falter a little bit, they could default easily to, that's just who we are. You can't allow that in the locker room. I mean, you talk about leaders eat last. You know about leadership, Dave. It's
either have or you don't. Golf course I play in South Carolina. The first 5 holes are gettable, and plenty of times I'm teeing off on number 6, and I'm 1 over par for the day or 1 under, and I go on and shoot around. But if I make bogeys or a double or whatever on those first 5 holes, I'm not going to break 90. No. And that's Florida's schedule for their first 5 games. I mean, when they come into Knoxville, game 6. They better be 4-1 at a minimum, maybe even 5-0 and ranked. But because if they're 3-2, 2-3, they're just going to have a hard time winning any game the rest of the way, or maybe win 1 game the rest of the way. And it's really those first 5 games, and there's there's no slouches in those first 5 games. I mean, Central Florida is going to be a tough game, I think. Yeah. Certainly Miami, Texas A&M.
Every game's a tough game when you lose to Vandy and Kentucky, and you have these. Every game's a tough game, and you're in the SEC. We all know that. It just got a whole lot harder, by the way, with Texas or you joining the whole thing, because they are going to be screwing up a lot of wins and losses this year for teams. I think we're going to see a bit, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Dave, but I totally agree with you what you're saying there. And I think Florida could come out, if they can find a way to go 4-1, like you said. I think they got a shot to have a pretty good season. But it's gonna have to be a different scheme. Billy's gonna have to come out with a different scheme. I don't think you can come out and line them up and play smash mouth football and run it up your gut yet. Not with this schedule, and I don't think you'll stay healthy.
I mean, I'm speaking from personal experience in golf, and I'm not that good of a golfer. And
I would if I was your caddy, I would have given you a drink by the second hole, by the way. So you'd
exactly. You feel a lot more pressure though when the first 5 holes are easy, and then the last 13 are hard. And I think that's the thing with Florida's schedule. I mean, I think there's a little bit more implicit pressure because they know that the games on the back end of the schedule are theoretically tougher games, and all the first 5 games are winnable. That I think puts pressure on them.
The thing about Florida's schedule, Brendan, this is tongue in cheek. The first part of the first quarter of the schedule has some tricky spots. The middle part has some tricky spots, and the tail end has tricky spots. But other than that, it's an easy schedule, right?
No problem.
And then you look at Mizzou, Rob. I'm sorry if I walked on you.
No, that's what I was trying to get you to bring up.
What Mizzou drink is going to feel
Missouri. Say Missouri. I like when you say Missouri.
Yeah, say Missouri.
Missouri, show me you sons of bitches. You got to show me. Missouri, I love that.
Show me.
Missouri has got to. They're going to feel really good about themselves through 4 games, and probably when they take that road game to College Station October 5th. But be careful. Be careful marking a W on Texas A&M, especially at their house, because you don't know how things might turn around for them this year. But when Mizzou gets to mid-October, it gets dicier because they get Auburn, Alabama, and Oklahoma all 3 in a row. There is an open date in there before they play Oklahoma, and you can say, well, they're better than Auburn, but anytime you play Auburn, LSU, that kind of mid to rising tier that's got some talent, it's to be taken seriously, and especially when they're kind of if they're undefeated when they play Auburn, they're looking ahead to the Crimson Tide a little bit.
All right, we're going to bring in just a minute Will Hearn, who's a student at the University of Georgia, Bulldog Illustrated, kind of get him in this mix with us. I'm going to throw one at y'all, but for Friday's show, I'm going to see if I met the sideline reporter for the Oklahoma Boomer Sooner Football Network, and this guy is JoJo the Circus Boy. He is jacked up, excited about being in the league. And I threw this one at him. I said, I've been at a lot of Auburn games over the years. And December 2nd, 1989, the first time Alabama ever came there, is pretty much the benchmark, the 30-year bellwether bond for Auburn craziness. I think when Oklahoma, I said, when they come in September 28th, 2:30, in the afternoon, whatever time they play it, this Auburn crowd, and by the way, December 2nd, 1989 was a 2:30 kickoff. So that's the standard. And we love night football in the South, but I think it's going to be cool to get this guy's perspective. And I think that talking to the Oklahoma, Tyler McComas, talked to him. I tell you who I met. I've had him on the show before, Barry Trammell, a great writer for the Daily Oklahoman. He has switched over to the Tulsa World. And I saw my friend Kirk Bowles out there that Ken Capps and Dave Cody have introduced me to. 51 years with the Austin American-Statesman. A month ago, he's gone over to the Houston Chronicle. As Jack Crystal, the voice of the Mississippi State Bulldogs, would often say, there's movement in the aisles here at Scott Field in Starkville, Mississippi. But there has been movement among some great journalists. But guys, breakfast every morning. Brendan, I'm telling you this, he works his ass off. I mean, I had people from all over the room seeking him out going, hey, can you – I mean, Vince Ferrara, Ken Capps, Bo Carter.
I'm going to need some crazy, security next time I hang out with you, Rob.
Hey, breakfast.
I need someone to like
morning,
protect me from that,
Yeah, it's like protection. But
free
in the
IT
morning,
work.
Yeah, Brendan and I went to an AI conference Thursday morning. Oh my goodness, the SEC is out, and half the panel was from Auburn in Florida.
It was awesome.
Dr.
More
Reed
Auburn,
Florida.
way more Auburn, by the way.
Way more Auburn guys.
There was like 6 guys up there. 2 of them were from Auburn, and they were talking about how Auburn is leading the way in AI and as far as development of graphics and all that stuff. And it was, I mean, like
not bad for Cal College, Rob.
Right?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Hey, yeah. I'm heading down.
I just thought it was an interesting because they they're starting to obviously adopt it. They didn't really go into how it's integrating into sport. There was more of a 30,000 foot perspective on AI and sort of how to deal with it. Yeah. But seeing how they're going, what's happening with that is going to be like what was it Drinkowitz? No, it was Hugh Freeze was talking about. He was asked that, and he was saying, "I could see that in the next 5 years being a big deal."
Yeah,
Rob, there at the outset of the show, I asked you in the room live as you were, which from my experience gives you a little different texture than looking through a TV screen, even with high def.
yeah.
And then you see them when they're not on stage, and what's their body language? What are you hearing about the different coaches? There's another speaker that was there early and often who has never suffered from a lack of confidence, and that's Commissioner Sankey.
Yeah.
And he's earning his pay these days because of the complete disruption and chaos to the architecture of college football that we've known. Yeah. There's been change, but usually you get major change and you have about 10 or 15 years to absorb it and adjust. We've had no stop to the major change the last few years. And I just wondered, does there come a point where Sankey has to decide, all right, there are certain things that are, if I may, in this election year, inalienable. And by the way, thank the Lord that our former president turned his head at just the right moment, and prayers to the family of Corey. I can't pronounce his last name.
Hard name to pronounce.
The comparator that was lost. Yeah. But back to my point, are there inalienable rights in certain principles that Sankey and the SEC and perhaps other conferences really don't want to violate unless Supreme Court requires them to? Or are we at a place where Sankey and all of these leaders' point of view is going to be like Groucho Marx said, I have principles that I follow, and if you don't like them, I also have some other principles that you can pick from. Is that kind of where we are? Is the TV money and the Supreme Court going to drive the design of college football in every case? I don't know, but there is an appeals court that ruled once again unfavorably to the NCAA in holding up questioning the notion of amateurism. So we're headed for players at the big time players being employees almost certainly.
Well, it could be, but I know Greg Sankey, the first question someone asked, and I gave this guy the Darwin Award for the question.
He was cool, Rob, right? Wasn't he?
He was.
We saw him out a lot. Did you feel like the first night we were there, we saw him? He was he was sitting
over there in the bar where we were. We were eating late, about 10 o'clock Sunday night. But Greg Sankey was asked about expansion. He said, I'm focused on my 16. That's my focus. Mm-hmm. He also was asked by somebody, why are we in Dallas? I think there was sort of a opinion by some people, why did the SEC run to Dallas? And he said, back in 2018, we made a decision we've got to get into Texas and do media days, because remember, A&M joined in 2012. I want to get a perspective, and we're going to do a lot of rapid fire, just move this ball around. I'm going to play point guard. Will Hearn is a rising sophomore from Monroe, Georgia. Is that correct? Yeah.
Marietta, yes, sir.
Marietta. Well, but your dad's from Monroe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
but, you write for Bulldog Illustrated. You cover Georgia. Okay, my kids are a little bit older than you, 24 and on up, but they are into the history, the tradition, the heroes of the SEC and college sports. And all the great writers pay homage to that. They don't have to, but they know, because that's what keeps us hanging on every word. You know the history of Georgia football, and you know that it doesn't last forever. Do you think Georgia fans truly, your age, appreciate what's happening up in Athens right now?
I would say I just hope so. I don't know. I know ever since I've been here, it feels like a long road. It hasn't really been for me because I'm only 19, and we've gotten 2. But I just know, looking from my dad's perspective, he went 40 years without winning one. And I think all my friends, a lot of their parents went to Georgia. A lot of them, also just have had their parents go through that drought. So a lot of us appreciate it. I don't think too many of the newer generation Georgia fans do, but I would say I'm definitely up there with being grateful for where we're at right now.
And Will, I do not mean salt in any wound. I promise. Georgia is the standard bearer right now with Coach Saban retiring. Doug Dean in Birmingham. Will, good to see you, brother.
Yes,
so think about it. I'm sure Kirby does late at night, as grateful as he is for their success. But if Kirby figures out how to defend 4 verticals in overtime on a 2nd and 26, you're sitting on another national championship in such a compressed period.
Every time I saw the intro this morning with the video of that play, and it sort of made me sick a little bit. But
That wasn't intentional.
I know, but oh my gosh,
Yes, it
yeah,
was.
every
Screw
single
Georgia.
best moment, best highlight video I ever watched, that one's there, and it just makes
Well,
me
some of us that have been on the wrong end of 4th and 31 can sympathize.
yes, sir.
Hey, speaking of Georgia, did you hear the latest reports about Trevor Etienne? Like, he is just a freaking hoss. Like, they're saying he is lighting it up. And he's going to be I mean, imagine him with an offensive line. I mean, forget it. He's going to be awesome this year.
He's
I'm
gonna
really
tear it up.
pissed that he's gone. All right,
I'm excited to see him.
That's a good.
I was just
that's a
gonna
good,
say.
Go ahead, Will. I'm sorry.
All right, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm so excited to see him play. He tore it up, honestly, at Florida last year, splitting reps, and he's going to be our main guy. I mean, Georgia obviously has 6 guys that'll play, so we've got a lot of running back depth there. But I think he's going to be a good pass catching back and a great option for Beck.
I've got to let me do a double-edged sword on this question, Will. And by the way, my impression is you're ahead of your years in being articulate, talking about Georgia football, SEC football. So good on you. You must have had some good mentoring from your dad, and others. But those of us who admire what Kirby Smart has done, and there are other people that get credit in recruiting, assistant coaches, the fan base for that matter. And the program's leadership commitment, which means money these days, to success. But my question is, I think Brock Bowers is one of the most generational, high-impact players we've had seen come through the SEC in a long time, and there's been a bunch of them. But and he's going to prove me right on that. Not that it's a bold pick when he's in the NFL. He's just such a mismatch nightmare being at the tight end spot with the speed he's got. He never drops a ball. And then you add Ladd McConkey to that, who's in the NFL, and I think he's going to be another one of these smaller guys that's hard to deal with his speed and the route running. So we know that Georgia always reloads and they recruit, and on paper you see 5 stars and what's not to like about them, but you're looking at sometimes high school film or portal transfer film. And I just think the logic would be there's some sort of, at least in a few games, drop off from having talent like Brock Bowers. So are Georgia fans expecting? Fans tend to be rosy at all times, but are they going to be realistic that it might take a little while to develop go-to guys of the caliber of those two? Or tell us about the wide receiver room and what people can look for from Georgia through the air.
So I would definitely say, just looking back at the end of last season, Georgia really didn't have a 100% Brock Bowers there with that. He had the ankle injury and all that. Ladd McConkey, I mean, 3-star turned, NFL almost first-round pick. I see the term Disney dog thrown around with the people that you said get rosy. And I don't think I'm necessarily a Disney dog, but I also think that Georgia's got so much experience there. Georgia has hit the portal well. Anthony Evans is a name. I don't know if y'all know. He's one of the fastest guys on our roster. Arian Smith, track guy, had a clutch catch against Ohio State in the Peach Bowl. And then tight end position, I don't think it's ever possible. I've talked to my cousin, who's also a big Georgia fan, about it. I don't know if for at least 20 years we're going to see a guy like Brock Bowers come through Georgia again. But Benjamin Jurosek, the Stanford tight end, transferred in. He's going to be a big piece. Lawson Lucky, Oscar Delp. I think we'll be solid. We'll be all around, but it's hard to say we're not going to be a little bit worse off without them too. And I hate to bring it up, but I feel like Brock Bowers, single-handedly willed Georgia over Auburn last year.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
So I had to bring it up a little bit.
You have to be honest.
I take zero offense from that. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And then, as you talked about that, it seems like the adjustment the biggest adjustment will be Carson Beck. He might not have that single security blanket that he knows on a tough 3rd and long that he's going to be looking for Beck a lot, or for not Beck, but Bowers. And so he's going to be required to distribute the ball to more guys, all of whom are talented.
Yeah.
And that's an adjustment that'll be fun to watch early season.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Dave, what's the current betting line? Is it 13.5 against Clemson? Is Georgia like a 13.5 point favorite right now?
That's what it was last time I saw it.
This is what I wanted to throw to you, Dave, and Will, is again with Clemson. I read an interesting take. It's in Lindy's SEC football annual, and we need to get Lindy Davis from Birmingham. I think this is year 45 for the magazine. It talks about Dabo's NFL portal. He's getting guys to get their NFL grades, and if they don't look like their first round, it's helping him keep them. Nobody else really talks about that. But, Dave, do you think living in the low country in Beaufort, South Carolina, being a Mountain Brook native, Alabama, West Point, Stanford to some extent before they quietly quit college football, sort of like Vanderbilt has done, unfortunately, is Georgia's ascension at the cost killing Clemson? I mean, because Clemson depends on the state of Georgia. They're an hour apart, the two campuses are.
I think this game's going to be a real watershed game. I don't see any scenario wherein Clemson wins, but I think it could be a blowout and Georgia wins by 4 or 5 touchdowns. And I also think it could be what does Lee Corso say, closer to the experts pick kind of game, and Georgia wins by a touchdown or so. And I think it's a real watershed moment for Clemson, for Dabo's legacy, for how Dabo coaches and how he recruits. He didn't want to be considered, and I don't think he was considered for the Alabama job. So this is a really, really, really important game for Clemson. And I don't think it's a game they can win, but I think it's really incumbent upon Dabo to keep it relatively close and have it be an interesting game, at least for 3.5 quarters. But that may not happen.
Yeah. Well, I guess you would compare that to that Oregon game, 49-3 a couple of years ago. Georgia just dominated the game. Malachi Starks has an interception in that first game, and he's been on the front page ever since then. Oregon bounced back, well from that loss in the 22 season. Who are Georgia's right now top 3 rivals as a 19-year-old rising sophomore from Marietta? My wife Audrey used to live over in Dunwoody, and our oldest daughter went to St. Pius X, the great Catholic school systems. Nobody does it better. But anyway, give me Georgia's top 3 rivals that you think are right now.
So I would go ahead and say not Georgia Tech. I'll start it off there. I know in-state, but I mean, what are we? I don't know how many years in a row now. It just doesn't feel like in my lifetime or in the latter half of my lifetime that's been much of a rival. I would go.
Tech's got to win a few, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And they've got to realize that college football is still a game played by collegians, because the people over there in the flats, as Tony Barnhart calls it, every time I go to Atlanta, I just sit there and I go, how can you not win with all of this? But go ahead.
Megatron was a long time ago for Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would have to say I hate putting Alabama on any list, but I think in my eyes, Alabama with Nick Saban just hurts the most. I would say Tennessee. I would say it's split between Tennessee and Auburn for me, and then I would say I'll give that 3A, 3B, and then I would put Florida at 2, just because we've had a good track record there recently in Jacksonville, but. I mean, Florida's easily number 1 when they're beating us. But at this current time, I would put them at 2.
And the thing is, well, there's this old line I love that seemed like it cropped up a few years ago where teams like Alabama and Georgia, people would say, well, Alabama and Georgia's schedule is easy because Georgia doesn't have to play Georgia or Alabama doesn't have to play Alabama. And it's a left-handed compliment. I think if you were born only about 10 or 12 years ago, and I say this with humility and embarrassment, you could say, well, the Auburn-Georgia game is not much of a rivalry because, back to your point, I mean, Auburn won in 2017, but the joy of that only lasted about a couple of weeks when they lost in Atlanta. Thanks for that one, Gus, going to Arkansas. If only he actually had gone to Arkansas. Georgia's success detracts from some of these historic rivalries because it's just damn hard to beat Georgia the last 10 or 15 years.
That is definitely true. I will say the most painful Auburn experience I have is I was at the 4th and 18 prayer at Jordan Hare play, and that one dug at me, and is another one of the highlights that I see along with the 2nd and 26 and
never forget it. Yeah, that one.
I was pretty close to Marietta watching that game. I was at the Meehan's Pub in Vinings, which Will knows probably knows certainly knows where Vinings is, and probably knows where Meehan's is.
Yes,
Will, you ever eat at the Mad Italian up in Dunwoody?
I think I've heard of it, but I haven't eaten
Our
there.
friend Rich Johnson, Rich from Atlanta, you've seen him on Feinbaum for years. He's a great guy. Love him. His daughter and Mallory were roommates at Alabama. And so anyway, you go there and you get the Philly cheesesteak sandwich, and then you get a side of the spaghetti. And Rich is from Philadelphia, and he's a big Alabama guy. He's a great person, though. And he'll take that Philly cheesesteak and then put the spaghetti on top of it. He calls it a pizza steak. So go to the Mad Italian and try that. But look, Will, I think both you're really impressive. I mean, your dad John is too. You're Sigma Nu at Georgia, like your dad. I can already tell. Dave, wouldn't you and Doug agree? He knows his history and it's front and center. That's why you're going to be a damn good writer. Who are some writers that you look up to?
We have the heir apparent, the Sidelines host right here.
Yeah, we're going to get you and Oakley coming on here more and more. But y'all get it. And Doug has a way of just asking questions, and Dave does too, that makes sense. In just recent history, Auburn if you go in this millennium, the first 2000 to 2009, Auburn 4, Georgia 6. 2010 to 2019, Auburn 3, Georgia 8. 20 to 23, it's Georgia 4, Auburn nothing. But look at in comparison, flip the tables. Steve Spurrier, 11-1 against Georgia. And that it's a series, the Auburn Georgia series. Auburn won the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. They won every decade. And then in 2001, when Mark Richt came, it changed a lot. But growing up in Marietta, the kids at your high school, there's a lot of transients there. They come from everywhere. And what's the student body like at Georgia? How many of the people around you are like lifelong South Georgia boys from down in Lowndes County and Bainbridge and Tifton and Moultrie and Waycross and Dublin and Sandersville? I mean, those are household names that just roll off the tongue with history. Only Lauren Smith and Larry Munson would say, "Lauren, what do you got?" That's Georgia football to me. That's the South.
I would say definitely in my pledge class, we've got some Lowndes guys. We've got, I don't know if I'd say as South Georgia, but St. Simon's, we've got some guys there.
A rough area to grow up in, I must add.
I'm sure. A lot of Atlanta, and then most in-state guys grew up Georgia fans, definitely.
Okay,
and
that's interesting.
In high school, it was a lot of Georgia, Alabama, Florida, I would say, and then I guess it goes back to what I was talking about with the whole who appreciates what we're in right now, and I would say anyone that grew up a Georgia fan appreciates it. Anyone that didn't, not so much.
You almost need to be at least 40 years old to appreciate it, because you had to have gone through a few disappointments and hopelessness, and not, like 2012, was it, that Georgia came so close to getting in
the clock ran out.
championship? Yeah. And anyway, Will, schedules are interesting in Vegas. All it likes to talk about look-ahead games and games that are back-to-back. And the schedule makers were particularly unkind to, you could say, Georgia, September 28th and October 5th. And I would say Auburn, except that Auburn is not projected to have a contend for the playoff necessarily. But Georgia gets to play Alabama and Auburn back-to-back. And so and Georgia fans, I'm sure, if not coaches, have circled the Alabama game for obvious reasons. And then and I would say that would give Auburn a chance to make it competitive again, like we saw last year in Jordan-Hare. I realize it's in Athens, but Auburn should be a little improved, and Georgia's rebuilding a few spots. But the problem for Auburn is you get Oklahoma a week before you have to go to Athens and play Georgia. So both of those teams, schedule makers a little bit unkind.
It's just all around. I think it was Brendan that said it earlier. The whole addition of OU and Texas just makes everything 5 times harder for every single team in the SEC, it feels like. I think Georgia goes – I have it pulled up here. Bama, Auburn, Mississippi State, then Texas. So
tough stretch.
A tough stretch. I would say Mississippi State I'm not too worried about, but I mean, you can lose any of those games. And I personally have done a thing with my dad the past few seasons where I've, just predicted what the record's going to be. And this is the first time, I think the past 2 seasons, I predicted 12-0, and I wasn't being dramatic. I just actually thought we would go 12-0. This season, I just don't see that happening. I'd say floor 10-2. I don't think we'll lose more than 2 games, but ceiling 11-1. Just with there's no way we don't lose at least one of those.
Yeah. Well, a 2-loss regular season is a 1-loss, if not undefeated season up until now.
Correct.
I want to make one comment, then I got to jump for work Zoom. I think March Madness is still the best event in sports. But what's happened this year in the SEC and in college football is that the SEC season now is like March Madness. And then the 12-team playoff is like March Madness. So we have like 2 March Madnesses where formerly there was 0 in football. That's what's so cool about the upcoming season, in my opinion.
I mean, Dave, that is a great description. And let me correct Shoney saying, pushing it, Rob, saying Clemson affects Georgia program. I'm talking about Georgia affecting Clemson, because Clemson, man, they come into Georgia. They make Auburn historically 48% of the time, if the top players in Georgia leave the state, they either go to Clemson, which is Auburn with a lake, or Auburn. That's how powerful what Georgia's doing is. And Dave, that's a great description of it. And also, I'll tell you another description of the grind. Texas and Georgia, they've had to do what Texas and Oklahoma do is they'll play the Red River Shootout out in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. And then historically, back in the Southwest Conference days, Texas would play at Arkansas the following week. Okay. Right. Then now the grind is you got to do it. It's like you're doing a track workout. We're doing 6 400s. We're doing 3 200s, and we're doing 3 800s. Your times have got to be 60 to 75 on the 400s, 25 to 30 on the 200s, and 215 to 230 on the 800s with 90-second splits. Okay, you go out there and you shoot that first one. Dave, thank you so much, man. We'll see you later this week. If you can join before Friday, do it. Okay. Thank you.
Put me on Friday because I'm going out.
Yeah, exactly. Moon River, we're ready to go. All right,
I'm playing the Beatles. Say it's your birthday for Rob Brown. Happy birthday, Rob.
I love it. Love the Beatles. But I think that's what the SEC grind is, Dave and Will, is that it's the track workout. You got 12 games. You got 6 400s, 3 200s, and 3 800s. And you got 90-second splits in between them. Don't come in at a 52, which is great on that first 400 because you got 5 more of them to go. They're going to have to learn to pace themselves, Doug.
Rob, Coach Dye, the proud son of the Georgia Bulldogs, Will, don't you forget it, Coach Pat Dye. And of course, he's funny. Vince Dooley, famous quarterback at Auburn, Pat Dye, All-American lineman, academic All-American at Georgia. But most fans would consider them the enemy, regardless of their alma mater. But Coach Dye was not alone. I think Dooley would have said this too, that I believe that you can only get your team really up peak emotionally for about 2 or 3 games a year. And now, do you think, if Coach Dye was staring at down the barrel of this schedule, the gauntlet that it is, Dye might say, we're going to have to figure out how to get them up for 4 or 5 games to have a chance. Yeah. It's just brutal. I'm with Will. I don't care how good Georgia or Alabama or anybody else is. Sitting in August, you're being a little, disingenuous to start calling an undefeated regular season. If there's a team that is built to do it this year with all the pieces they've got, it's probably Georgia. And there may be an Alabama that changes our mind on that. A lot of that will go to how far Milroe can go with his development. But Georgia could go undefeated. I would be the last to predict any team in the SEC to have less than 2 losses, to be honest. And if a team gets to 1 loss, they're in. They'll be playing for the SEC championship. And even if they lose, they're probably in the playoff.
Yeah. I've got my top 4 SEC are Georgia, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Alabama. And I've got Georgia and Ole Miss playing in Atlanta. I think Texas is good, but it's the grind. 12 times versus you got 8 conference games. Versus,
there's a conditioning. I don't care how good the coaches are. There's got to be a mental and physical conditioning vis-a-vis depth that they've got, quality depth, that you're confident putting a second or third rotation guy in a big game at a big moment. And so I think there'll be a learning curve of 1 or 2 years for Texas and Oklahoma, just simply learning, getting used to the conditioning of playing that many tough games in the course of a season.
You remember 1987, the last 4 games of the season for Auburn. Auburn's opening game in 1987 was Texas. They played Georgia Tech on the road at Grant Field, Bobby Dodd Stadium. The last 4 games of the season in 1987, it was Auburn played Florida at Jordan-Hare. The next week, Florida State at Jordan-Hare. The next week, the raincoat game, the year after the sprinklers were put on the Georgia fans. We had to go to Athens. And the next week, had to go to Birmingham. Harry Mose from Lake Wales, Florida, scored one of his only touchdowns in his short Auburn career. But tough schedules are, Doug, you're right. They're 1983, Kerry Jones up in Lebanon, Tennessee is right. You sign up in the SEC, guys. You join the Marine Corps, you know what you're getting into. Now, that's another level. But I'm saying you know what you're getting into.
And, Rob, you know what could get Will, and I'm going to have to cut out so you and Will can wrap up the show in a second. But what I think – I don't know if I could handpick 2 or 3 games. What you might also see happen that we normally wouldn't this season is when SEC teams step out of the conference and it's a decent opponent, all that you've gone through to mentally and physically prepare for SEC opponents, maybe you don't put quite as much in, like Auburn Cal. Or, I think Georgia will be ready to play Clemson. It's the first they'll be chomping at the bit to play that one. But, Florida playing UCF. And a dangerous spot in the season. If Napier loses that one, he may not be back on Monday in his office. So look through the non-conference. Mizzou playing Boston College. It's in Columbia, but these games, you can't get ready for 8 or 9 games a year at the same level. So you better just be dominant enough to not. Maybe you have a closer game and it's scary, but all you got to do is win in this new format.
Look, Doug. Right on. Be ready to go Friday morning. Love the insight. Totally agree with what you just said. You can't. There are no easy days. Not in the SEC.
Hey, Will. Good to meet you, brother. Good luck to the Dogs this year.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
Thank you. Let me tell you something, man. Great stuff, Will. Got to get you back on here again soon. Thanks to everybody, to all of our sponsors like Coolmore Logistics and Transportation.
People are asking about where your seats are, man. You got a following here now on SEC Sidelines Sports. You came correct. Next time we got to get a little light on your face, really accent your cheekbones, lift them. You look good, kid.
Hey, you know what, though? You're a young writer. And that's what, Buddy Martin is a legendary sports writer. We have Tony Barnhart. We get great writers on here, engage these writers. You got great demeanor. You know your stuff. And the more you know about the other teams in the conference, it's called the tectonic plates theory. What happens at Auburn affects what happens at Georgia and Tuscaloosa and Gainesville and Knoxville and Fayetteville, Oxford, whatever. The bottom line is what Brendan and I saw at SEC Media Days, again, over 1,200 credentialed media. When you're around these coaches and then, you're the players and you hear Graham Mertz, Florida's quarterback, talking about what Danny Werfel means to him, and to walk out in the hall and there's Danny Werfel. He's probably got 5 million other things he could be doing and might want to be doing, but he's there to back his quarterback for his school. One thing, the NFL is great. You get a paycheck. But, players never are in tears after a loss in a pro game because they've got a big check coming. In college, now I know NIL is what it is. There are very few people in college getting big NIL money. Don't fool yourself.
Hey,
I mean,
yeah.
Have you seen, it's still the greatest game ever.
Have you seen Swamp Kings? Will, did you watch Swamp Kings?
I think I watched the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, you got to get to the third one. The third one gets it really deep. And I'm not talking from a Florida Gator perspective. I'm talking from an SEC football fan perspective of that time. Both of you two have homework assignments.
I need
to watch.
You
need to watch it because a lot of the things we talk about, the coaching and the style and the way it was, that's the way it was. We can't go back there. So when you're back on, Will, next time your assignment is to watch it. And then we're going to discuss how that affects the culture of SEC football and what you think the future is going to be as far as the coaches and how coaches are going to have to coach players your age.
Sounds good.
But I will say this: the kids your age, they'll take whatever you throw at them. The biggest myth in today's culture, in today's world, is the young people are lazy. No, it's the parents. Too many times are wanting to be their kids' best friend.
You just have to Irish goodbye out here. Well, that's
you got to raise that. You got to raise the bar. But I do think that this coming college football season, Brendan and I saw it in Dallas. Folks, you can say all you want, buy into all that negative narrative.
A lot of things
that's on you.
In Dallas, by the way.
We're about to have one of the greatest seasons we've ever had. The game just gets bigger because as we get closer to practice, all that other crap goes out the window.
Yes.
And the greatest game in the history of games, college football, it's growing all over the world. It's coming at you, and get ready, folks.
Thanks, Will. We'll see you next time.
Yep,
bye,
thank
Will.
you.
All right,
God
Rob. We gotta we have to say. I wanted to say first of all, happy birthday.
Thank
take
you.
a moment to say happy birthday. I don't know if you've been noticing all the little fun and little memes I've been popping up behind your head the entire
I've
time.
seen
But
them.
I tried to go around the SEC for you, Rob. Audrey wanted me to know 42 minutes in that it was your birthday. Audrey, you think this is my first day? Come on. We already did a whole thing by then. But Audrey and all of us here, Buddy Martin, and the cast of thousands that work for SEC Sideline Sports Network, which we did make a splash down there.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a lot of new guests. But more importantly, it's been so much fun to work with you. And I just want you to know from me and Buddy and everyone else, happy birthday. I hope you have a really good birthday today. You deserve it. And it's going to be exciting. I'm getting really excited. How many days till college football, Rob?
Well, we are 40 days away, or 960 hours, if anybody's keeping track. And look, I'll be in Auburn.
College football
I'll be in Auburn
season
on the road Thursday and Friday. We're going to meet with Exo Armor, Dr. Michael Zabala, and get the full tour. Brendan, come up if you can.
Oh, sure.
Got a place for us to stay. We're going to be getting the tour of the facility, and also I'm going to see Dr. Ali, who was on the AI panel there. I'm going to go meet with him. While we're there, we're going to do some shows on campus. I'm going to tell you something, folks. We are so blessed to have an unbelievable audience. And we met Dan Bond out there. What a good dude, man. And Casey Goodjohn, one of our viewers out in Texas, drove up from Fort Worth, drove over to see us at Media Days. And just, you talk about fans. And man, we're here to serve, and bottom line, support our sponsors. We're looking at bringing on some incredible new sponsors here very soon.
But
if you're interested in being a sponsor,
I just want to tell you though,
contact us.
I just wanted to say that it was cool because what you're describing the scene, hearing, we're going to talk about Danny Werfel, and you go outside and there's Danny Werfel. That's like my childhood, right? Like I come home and Kenny Stabler and Terry Bradshaw are in the living room, right? Like, and I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to say that was my life. So that's like, not normal, but I've been doing that for the first time and all these things. And I don't even know. I've been to a bunch of these things, and for all different conferences, and I will say, I don't know if you felt like it, but I think what we're doing here is very well accepted, and people like it. Even JD Piquel and
what a great guy. I love that guy.
They all came up to us, are very warm to us, more so than just working for anybody else, because I think people feel like they can be themselves on the show. You don't have we don't have any rules. We don't send you a whole list. Like most producers will send you a rundown. Don't say this, don't talk about this, don't do this. We don't do any of that. Just come on the show, talk about First Amendment, live and well on the show. And I don't know about you, but I felt like it was we were doing a different kind of work, and in a lot of sense, because we have this show where we cover all the SEC. Did you kind of feel like that was I felt like that was, not to steal Dave Tompkins' words, but a watershed moment.
Yeah. Well, the main thing is I get as excited, and you do. I mean, I get about all these fan bases, and obviously everybody knows I'm an Auburn grad, but I got involved for life for a wife, 3 Auburn kids, an Alabama kid, friends, and all these different fan bases. But the cool thing is, our show is about, history, tradition, and heroes in the SEC. And I feel this momentum. Can't get a better birthday present than this. I mean, being able to do this every day, because it ain't work, folks. It's think of the
working for a living
like
sucks.
doing in the world on steroids. It's that much. It's
working
that much fun.
for a living sucks. But on the flip side of that, we had a lot of people asking. I don't want to get too heavy into it, but I had a lot of people that didn't know the end of the story. You follow me on Instagram. I don't really care if you do, but I mean, I do have a personal Instagram page. But I post there for a Facebook. But what happened was, I stayed an extra day because I wanted to go to the AI conference, really, and so I was leaving on Thursday. And so Rob's like, I'd stay another day, change the flight. And, was gracious enough that, like, our sponsor gracious enough to send us there. So we changed the flight, and it was worth it, right? AI conference, everything. I go to the airport the next day. I'm on the plane, about to take off, and I have this all documented. And then they announce, get off the airplane. And that's where they announced the Microsoft Global outage, right, from the crowdsource. Was it crowdsource or whatever that company was? The Australian. I just keep thinking like 2 Australians in a room with like Crocodile Dundee going, "Hey, upload that software upload there." like oh, what, wrong one. But it crashed everything, and I'm sitting in this airport, and I feel like for the first, I've traveled 1,000 times. I get you hear this creepy announcement on the PA system that says Microsoft is down globally and flights are grounded. Now, this is hours before, almost a full day before anyone really knew what was going on, which it really wasn't reported early. I'm stuck in DFW. Rob's driving home. And for the first time since 9/11, Rob, that night, I look up in the sky and there wasn't a plane in the sky. It was the most creepy, vulnerable, weird feeling of my life. And that's, I was lucky enough to, the next day buying a ticket, which was smart, because if I tried to rebook myself, I'd have been dead in the wire. Screw you, Frontier Airlines. I don't even want to get into it. But I got home 3-4 o'clock in the morning. But with all that being said, and I'm fine, and that all worked out. But all that being said, it was still worth it to go and hang out and do all that stuff and be exhausted and come back, because I think that moment for us as a team and what we're doing for a show here is going to be super important going forward, because we joke around a lot here. We have a lot of fun, but we're very serious about what we're doing. And we have a mission to save. People think we're joking. Rob and I had a conversation, and I'm only saying this because it's your birthday, and I know I'm being long-winded. I don't really care, but I'm going to say Rob had a vision. He contacted me. We talked about it with Audrey for months. This was December of last year. And our moment in that time, which was we are going to bring back and try to save college football from the Southern perspective and keep our traditions alive. And this show is going to usher us into the new era. And when we were in SEC Media Days, I looked down at one moment. You just asked a question to Freeze, and then you passed the mic over to me, and I stood up and asked a question. I sit down, and I thought, man, we have come a long way in a very short amount of time, and we're right on track with what we're doing. So thank you for bringing me along the ride.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to our guests and everybody, and thanks to our fan base. Please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching on Twitter, please retweet us and follow our pages. You coming on at any point is what we need, and we need that to continue to bring this content for you for free, because we keep this alive for y'all. And so thanks to our audience, and happy birthday, Rob Brown.
Thank you. You can't get any better than that. And that's the bottom line, is we're just getting started. But this season, I'm telling you folks, don't buy into all the negativity, okay? Positive in, positive out. And that's what we're coming. We're going to be hitting a lot of stuff that we learned from Media Days. You talk about, Maury Gaston's right. It's a college football trade show. It was absolutely awesome. Glad to have all of our guests and everybody. So be ready. Buddy Martin show tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on this network. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed country in the history of the world. Just remember, every day, go out and make great things happen. Out of here. See you tomorrow. Thanks for the birthday wishes. I appreciate it.
Happy birthday, Rob Brown.
More.
That's right. Well, to many, many more. All right.
That's right.
There's a button around here to get out of here. I need to go back to the broom closet, maybe. I think I'm a better producer. But less pressure.
The Skyway Lounge.
Hey, Lane Kiffin, take a hint. It's less pressure when everyone doesn't expect you to win, right? All right. Good night. Right. Good day. Good night. Whatever. Bye, everybody.
Good night, everybody. See you in the morning.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shoppe health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Now more than ever, it is so important to shop local and to buy American. For 60 years, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company has been on the historic Collierville Square, and we strive to sell made in the USA products when available. With over 7,000 pairs of Western boots and work boots in stock for men and women, come and see our huge selection of clothing, jeans, and accessories from top brands made in the USA. Please support local business and come shop with us at Hewlett